This an all-out blitz. Real hard hits, them other podcast trash, we gon' make them all quit. We cover all the topics with intelligence and logic. I know you wanna score, but ID gon' stop it. We from Texas, so that mean that we Texans. Breaking down the X's and O's, our profession. No complaining, just training, you see the progression. They had a Pro Bowl for talk shows, we get selected. We gon' celebrate every win like a birthday. Ray J with the news, first with all the updates. Spin move on the competition, yeah, we juking them. You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Texans Fan Battle Podcast. Today we got a special host, a guest before I introduce him. I am your host, Matthew Briggs, with my amazing trio. First off, I got my A1 since day one, Mr. Crenshaw. So what's up to the folks?
How y'all doing out there?
And we love this guy in the spaces. He's a legend on Twitter and on Reddit. We got Mr. VT.
What's going on, guys?
And guys, our special guest, me and Crenshaw and BT both said this a lot of times, but we know we're going to get flack for it. But we got the greatest Houston Texan quarterback to ever grace the field. We got Mr. Matt Schaub.
Hey, guys. Appreciate you having me on today.
Hey, thanks for coming on. Are you excited for some playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it's the best time of the year. You know, there's nothing like playoff football. And since the addition of a couple of teams and added games from this past weekend, I mean, it's a great time of year.
Well, before we jump in to the main reason here, who do you got winning? What's your predictions of the Super Bowl?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. You know, in the AFC, you know, it's hard to ever go against Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, but there's something about the Buffalo Bills this year, and you know they had a really hard-fought battle last year in the playoffs. But I think the Bills out of the AFC, I like them. Just such a complete team with Josh Allen. The NFC, you know, I grew up in Philly, and what they have going on up there with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts and that team, they just seem like they have something about them, that they're just putting up a lot of points in their defense. Their defensive line is playing well, so I like that matchup. Check back with me in a week or two, and I'll give you a prediction. So I'll leave a little bit to be desired there, but I'll go with the Buffalo-Philadelphia Super Bowl.
Now, I got a real quick kind of question for you. Me, VT, and Chris all kind of have this argument going back and forth. Do you think Brock Purdy is just a flash in the pan this season, or is he the real deal?
Well, I mean, based on just the small bit of time he's been playing, I mean, he's been very consistent. You know, he's been more than what people thought he was going to be, and that's a game manager, right? When I watched what I've seen of him now over the last couple weeks, I didn't see a lot of his early play, but just numbers and stats and all that. But, you know, he seems to have just a calm demeanor, right? Even keel. He's never too high, never too low. So I like what I see from him. I mean, Kyle obviously does a really good job of managing him within the framework of their offense. And it's too early to tell if it's a flash in the pan or if this is a long-term thing. But, I mean, obviously he's been consistently playing really well. And, I mean, what a great first start to his playoffs this past weekend. So we'll see. But he's got a great team around him and a great coaching staff. So just lean on them a little bit in these playoff games, and you know, I think he'll be okay.
He got some real great defensive-minded coach on D'Amico Ryans. Hopefully, he become a future Texan coach, right? Well,
you know, yeah, I think he could be. I mean, who knows what'll happen? But D'Amico's a head coach in waiting. You know, he had a little bit of buzz last year, but this year he's got a lot of buzz around. Teams want to him. He has that head coach makeup and he's got the defense playing so well the past 2 years. So it's good to see because you could sense that back in our days together in Houston, D'Amico had that coaching it factor. It was just a matter of if that was something he was going to get into when he was done playing.
Okay. Well, Matt, like I said, pre-production, man, you're a legend to have on the show, so we want to talk about you. I'll start off with the first question. I was there at that game against Tennessee when Andre beat down Cortland Finnegan. Tell me,
Right.
tell me what was it like watching it live? What was your experience through the whole thing? Because I mean, from what I heard, Andre is not that type of person. Like, he's a calm, collective, humble guy, and it was very out of his character. So go ahead and tell us, how was that?
Like, just to piggyback on what you said about Andre, he's very reserved, right? But when he speaks, you listen because he has something important to say, and the thing about that situation, that had been brewing for a couple of years, to be honest with you. I mean, that was the type of player Cortland Finnegan was. He liked to instigate things. He was the type of guy that, things like that were going to happen when you play against him. But he's the type of guy, if he's on your team, you love him because he's that tight. He can get in under guys' skin on the other team. But it was something that had been brewing. We had something also at Tennessee where it was a sideline scuffle, a lot of pushing on our sideline. But this one had been coming, and he was instigating it for a few plays prior to that. The thing was, I handed the ball off, I don't know if it was to Arian or what, going the opposite direction. And Andre was on the backside. So I came around carrying out my fake. And here I see they're just going at it, just, kind of in when they were kind of wrestling before their helmets went flying. So, yeah, I just stopped and I'm like, here it is. I knew something like this was going to happen. It was just a ticking time bomb. And, we were in that game. I think it was 20-0. At that point, we were pretty much in control of it. I don't know who they had playing on the other side, but they were banged up offensively. And so we had it in hand. And so I was just thankful that after that incident that he didn't get suspended for the next game, because I believe we had a Thursday night game at Philadelphia or something that next week. And so, but that thing was brewing for a while. And then when the helmets went flying and that haymaker or two that Andre threw, I was like, if he caught one of those flush on Cortland, he might just be out cold.
The lights out. Well,
yeah.
Since you brought up Andre, do you think this is his year to be in the Hall of Fame?
I absolutely do. I texted him that when, the finalist list was released, and, it is his year. But I mean, it's a matter of time, but I got to think this is the year. When you look at the list of guys, I mean, all of them are very deserving of it and most likely will be in at some point in the future. But, this is the year for Andre when you look at what he did throughout the course of his career from day one with Houston till, when he finished his career. But, man, he just did it at the highest level, and he was a pro's pro and just handled his business. All he wanted to do was win. He didn't have that ego that, he wore on his sleeve. He just went about his business and played hard and gave you everything he had. And that's all you can ask for as a teammate.
Almost definitely. Well, I'll shoot it off to BT. What's one of your first questions for Mr. Schaub, BT?
So one of my first questions is about Joe Mays. So he got fined $50,000 when he hit you, and it looked like you took a chunk out of your ear out. And if memory serves me correct, I think you have clarified that and said that it wasn't as bad as it looked. But the real question is, how did it feel to have him on your squad just a year later after that hit?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a little bit of a story there. First off, Joe's an awesome guy. First-class human being. He waited outside the tunnels. He checked on me 3 different times, right? And the thing about that is that hit looked really bad. And, at the time it didn't feel great. But a lot of times the ones that look really bad aren't necessarily that bad. But what happened was the speaker system that you have to communicate from coach to quarterback, that speaker sliced my ear. Now, the whole thing that I lost part of my ear, that's like conspiracy theory, right? So it was just a bad slice, and they put the stuff that clots the ear and all that. But no, we were my ear was fine. I just missed the one play. But so then we fast forward to the next offseason, and we're doing our offseason program, and I'm eating lunch with, it might have been breakfast. It was breakfast or lunch with Dwayne Brown. We all remember Dwayne, left tackle, has been playing, I think, 15 years now, was with the Jets this past season. Massive guy. We're eating lunch, and Sean Washington, our player development coordinator, came up to us and said, "Hey, guys, we have a player in, free agent, we want y'all to come say hey to." I'm like, "Oh, who is it?" And I turn around, and he's like, "It's Joe Mays." I was like, "Absolutely, I want to come see Joe," you know? And because I didn't talk to him since that day, that game the year before. And I said, "Dwayne, come on over with me." And so I just tapped on Joe's shoulder, and man, you should have seen the look on his face. Like, it was funny, but we hit it off right away. Great teammate, but yeah, that hit was one that people ask me about a lot.
Crenshaw, what about you? What's one of the questions you'd like to ask Mr. Schaub?
How did you feel on March 8th when you got traded to Houston?
Elation. Man, I was so excited because it was something I was part of that process, right? So I was a restricted free agent with the Atlanta Falcons, and to be traded and have that opportunity, that was up to me if it was a good fit. And spent a day with Gary Kubiak, and we just hit it off, right? We just had great conversation. We saw the game the same way and what he was trying to build, and I wanted to be a part of that. And so when we finally got that deal worked out and done, and being able to get on a plane and fly, I was out in California at the time, and flew into Houston. It was 3 years leading up to that of just growing, learning how to be a professional quarterback, and getting an opportunity was what I was seeking. And it was just a culmination of a lot of things, but I was so excited to come to the city of Houston and help raise the level of the Texans organization and become a division champion, and be getting the playoffs and mix it up with some of the teams in January.
All right. Well, here I got another question for you. All three of us always say this. People call us conspiracy theorists, whatever. But we believe the year that you went down and TJ Yates took us to the playoffs and lost to Baltimore, we believe if you were healthy, Super Bowl bound.
Mm.
What's your thoughts? Do you think we'd be Super Bowl bound if you were healthy?
That year, I think we had that makeup. We were at that point in the season, I think we were 8-3 when I got hurt.
Yep.
And we started the year kind of 500. I don't know if we were 2-3 or 2-2. Excuse me. And so we just hit a run. And our defense was playing unbelievably well. They were getting turnovers. And offensively, we were just finding our rhythm. And we were clicking both in run and pass. And Arian was making plays in the pass game. And Andre was doing his thing. Everyone was chipping in. But we just had that teams have, and they find, and the ball bounces your way. And you just find a way to win games. And we were just clicking on all cylinders. So, yeah, and I had seen Wade Phillips, who was our defensive coordinator at that time. I played against him then after our time in Houston, probably 3 or 4 times. And I visited with him pregame, and he always referenced that year. And there was something about that team that it had, I not gotten hurt and some other things happened that we would have found ourselves deep into January, if not beginning of February, playing still. And so, I look back on that, and that was a tough pill to swallow, and have to watch the end of that season and the way it ended. But, we had a good run there in 2012 that next year. But, 2011, because we were somewhat of an unknown. We weren't sneaking up on anyone in 2012 and then 2013. But that year, it seemed like we could make some noise because we were somewhat of that dark horse.
Yeah, and that was the year the J.J. Watt experience kind of took off in the playoffs when he picked off Andy Dalton, took it to the house. So that was awesome to watch.
And that's the thing is, a guy like JJ, he was in his rookie season, right? So he was, by that time in the year, you're no longer a rookie. You played enough football, you've seen enough that he was really coming into his own and making those strides in November, December, and then into January that, you saw him then take that big leap in 2012 and beyond. Mm-hmm. But those guys, him, TJ had to step in, Connor Barwin was a young player, even Brian Cushing was in his 3rd year in defense. But, we had guys who were really coming into form and finding themselves.
Matt, let me add before I talk to Crenshaw. JJ Watt's huge on TV, but does it do any justice in real life? Like, is he as that big on TV as in real life, or is he bigger?
Yeah. I mean, he's huge, and just the transformation he took on from that 2011 season over the next few years, and then the rest of his career, and what he did, just developing himself, and it's just insane how big he is, and again, how hard he works. Let's not get confused. It wasn't just he didn't wake up that way. It was just he worked hard at it. But yeah, I mean, he's massive. And we had a lot of good battles. I'm glad I didn't necessarily have to play against him on the other side of the football. I had to face him in practice, and he batted down enough footballs. And it's the most frustrating thing as a quarterback when you get a ball batted down because you have a guy open. You're going to make a big play, and then it just gets batted down, and you're just like, come on, man.
Well, we got a question from the group or from YouTube. How fast was Watt? Was he pretty quick?
Yeah, I mean, fast enough. Yeah, I mean, straight line. I mean, he was fast enough. I mean, that's the thing about the game and how it's changed. I mean, guys, even 290, 300 pounds that are just powerful and explosive. And you're asking a guy that isn't that fleet of foot to begin with. So there's a lot of guys that are fast in my eyes. The thing about him is he's so fast off the ball. His study of cadence and the snap count and just his first step and then his move to be able to beat a double team, which he started to see almost every play. I mean, he's quick and elusive for a big guy, especially within the tackle box. But yeah, I mean, he's straight line fast. Again, I'm not the fastest guy to ask that question. So,
all right, well, Crenshaw, I'll see you. You got another question from Mr. Schaub?
Yeah. So, using historic quarterback draft, how did you feel when J.P. Lossman, if I'm saying his name right, went before you?
Well, looking back on it, yeah, it frustrates me at the time. Yeah, it kind of did, but you know what? I knew my spot, right? Because there's so much this, that, and the other, and stuff leading up to it. Mel Kiper has his predictions, and they have where you're projected to go. And based on my time at University of Virginia, I had an idea that I was either going to be 4 or 5 in that list of quarterbacks, and it just so happened I went 5th out of them. And I wasn't surprised. It is what it is. The teams have their certain preferences and what they want to do. And JP was a little more elusive and a little bit more of a multifaceted type of quarterback. So at the time, it is what it is. You can only control what you can control as an athlete. And so is my mindset. Hey, wherever I go, I'm just going to give it 100%. I'm going to give him everything I have. The thing about it was he went, I think, somewhere in the mid-20s in the first round, and I went 90th overall in the third round. So there's a big gap between him and then me, and that was the thing, is who might want or need a quarterback in the second round or early in the third. To my surprise, to be honest, to expand on the point a little bit, Atlanta hadn't even really done much research or digging on quarterbacks. They didn't really interview anyone at the combine. I had a brief conversation with then coordinator Greg Knapp at the combine. It was very brief, but they called an Atlanta number called me, and my parents lived in Atlanta at the time, so I knew the area code, and I had no idea. And there I am, I'm getting drafted to go back up Mike Vick, and our skill sets are vastly different. Let's just say that at the time. So, but yeah, I mean, to look back on it, yeah, it's kind of like, well, I think Buffalo might have made a bad decision in that draft a little bit. They got it right about, 13 years later with Josh Allen, 14 years later.
Right. Well, before I ask BT his next question, we got a question from YouTube. What did you do with the red scooter?
That was a rental. It's so funny. That's a great question. Whoever sent that out there. Yeah, my red scooter from after I had my surgery on my foot. That's how I got around. I mean, the stadium, everything's so spread out. I had to go across Kirby, to go over to practice because I still wanted to be involved. I wanted to help TJ, the other guys on offense, and be a visible presence, being a leader on the team. That was important to me. And so to get around on crutches was just not happening. So I think it was my wife. She found a company with medical supplies and rented a scooter and had it delivered to the stadium. And so I parked it right there in the training room. Christmas time, we put lights on it, and it had this little horn. I mean, I drove a lot of people crazy on that thing, but it helped me get around. I mean, everything's so spread out. It was important.
That's awesome. Awesome. BT?
So before I ask this question, I'm going to have to preface it just a little bit for some of the younger audience here. So you led our franchise the first time ever to a 500 season. You led the franchise to the first winning season. You led the franchise to the first playoff appearance. You were the passing leader in 2009. And in 2012, you had that amazing game against the Jags of 527 yards, that overtime throw to Andre Johnson that I put in the intro. And then in 2013, things started to unravel. You had that four consecutive game pick six. What do you think is that reason? We've heard speculation it's the injury. We've heard speculation from your fellow teammates that it was in your head. What do you think happened? Because you were performing at such a high level.
Yeah, I mean, if I knew what it was, it wouldn't have happened, or it would have stopped, right? So, and to be honest with you, it was, looking back on it, I mean, it was 4 bad throws, 4 bad decisions. Guys made plays. I didn't make the play. I didn't move on in my progression, various things. We got away with it week 2 against Tennessee, and we still won the game. We started off 2-0, went to San Diego, won at home against Tennessee, and then
Monday night, was it not Monday night against the Chargers on Monday night?
It was a Monday night opener out there. We dug ourselves a hole, but we battled back and we won. Had a big second half, but yeah, and then that pick six. While it hurt against Tennessee, we overcame it. DeAndre Hopkins came out of his own into his own. Andre had to leave the game, and so DeAndre picked us up. And then we played some teams where you can't make those mistakes, and they cost us. Baltimore, San Francisco on the road, and then Seattle at home. Obviously, we had that game pretty much in hand with probably 3 or 4 minutes left when. That one ended up going to overtime because of that pick six, and then we ended up losing. But just some bad decisions in crucial moments. It wasn't that it was all bad in all those games. It was just some isolated bad decisions, and sometimes those end up incomplete. But when they go back for pick sixes, obviously they get highlighted as they should be. And, to have an all-time record for pick sixes in a row in 4 games, hey, someone's got to hold that title. So I own it. It is what it is. Can't change it. But it wasn't all bad in those games, and so it was an isolated thing. And I can still go back. I still see those plays playing out in my eyes. And so, if I could have pinpointed it, I wouldn't have had those happen.
Okay, fair enough.
Before I ask you another one, we got a couple from the YouTube and from Facebook. Speaking of the draft and of quarterback class, what do you think of this upcoming quarterback class?
Yeah, I think it's pretty strong. I haven't necessarily studied any of them other than seeing them play. With Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud at Ohio State. I think Will Levis at Kentucky is one that's up there, rated pretty high. But I haven't done a deep dive into studying those guys. I know just probably what everyone else sees, right? And so I know they can throw it. I think those guys are talented. You obviously have some guys up there at the top of the draft class that have played in big-time games and, played in some close games, but they know how to win and are accurate and can deliver the football. So I think there's some due diligence there to make sure you're getting the right guy, but I think there's some players that are worthy of that number 1 pick, and that is definitely something that any franchise is looking to shore up and have the ID that one player that's going to be their signal caller and hopefully for a decade or more to come.
I would so too because the Texans surely need it. But Matt, my question for you is: of all the colleges, why did you pick University of Virginia?
Yeah, great question. It was the right fit for me when you look at the combination of academics and play Division I college football in the old Atlantic Coast Conference. Back then, there wasn't the split. There was still the Big East, and so it was just the original 9 ACC schools. Um, and then when I got on campus, and I was fortunate throughout my sophomore junior year to kind of travel around on the East Coast and kind of the Big Ten area because I grew up in Pennsylvania and see some colleges, visit unofficially with coaches, get a feel for college campus, what I enjoyed, what I was looking for. But Virginia just seemed right, and it was just a good fit for me. And North Carolina was in the mix, Purdue was in the mix. They had Drew Brees at the time, so it was appealing because they just threw the mess out of the ball. So it was like, why would I not be interested in Purdue? So those were kind of my final schools, but Virginia just jumped off the page, especially once I got there and visited.
Okay. Well, you backed up Michael Vick. Was there a rivalry because he went to Virginia Tech? You went to Virginia. Was there some trash talking?
Oh, absolutely. There was always trash talking. And at the same time, we probably, I had on the Falcons team when I got drafted here, Patrick Kearney was a defensive end. He played at Virginia just before I did. We were like ships passing in the night. So at least I had someone on my side, but we had like 6 guys from Virginia Tech on our team with the Falcons. And, at least when I was coming out my last year at Virginia, we beat them. So I had our first round pick, my draft class was D'Angelo Hall. He was the number 8 pick overall. And so I had bragging rights on him because we beat them in our last game against one another. But it was tough sledding for a long time. So I didn't have much to brag about, but we definitely had our little friendly jersey hat wager. Hey, you got to do an interview. And I hated putting those colors on, but you gotta own up to your bets. But yeah, the thing was I wore number 7 in college, and Mike obviously was number 7. And at the point in time I got drafted, I mean, he was one of the top, most visible athletes in all the world. And I would just walked in the locker room and said, "Hey, Mike, I got a fresh $20 bill right from the ATM for number 7." And we had a good laugh. We hit it off. Mike was a great guy, great teammate, and so. But I was like, "Hey, I'll take number 7 off you." He was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I have no ties to it. Other than the fact the NFL probably won't like it with jerseys that they produce and everything." I was like, "Yeah, you're probably right."
We got a comment from Facebook that said, "Yes, you do have to cash in those bets." LOL, shake my head. This is Leonard Firestone. We have another podcast called the AFC South Fan Battle, and I made him a bet. He has a beard kind of like mine. I made him a bet that if the Titans miss the playoffs, he has to dye his beard red, white, and blue for the Texans. And of course, he lost. So it was fantastic. It was
I like it.
Yeah. BT, what about you, sir? You got another question for him?
I do. And so before I ask this question, I do have to tell you a little story, which is that you are the reason actually why I'm a Texans fan. So I'm not from Houston. I'm actually from Connecticut. I actually live in Florida now. And the way I became a Texans fan was back in summer of 2008. My best friend really asked me and begged me essentially to join his fantasy football league. And I was like more of a casual football fan back then, not the way that I am today. And so I joined. And I drafted you in my fantasy league. And when you have your quarterback, especially if it's your first year playing fantasy football, I watched you a lot. You won me that championship with your performance, and I became a dedicated Texans fan ever since. So I know that's a weird way to become a Texans fan, but you're the reason why I'm a Texans fan and why I'm on the podcast. So I just have to let you know that.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. It's funny. I mean, it's the fantasy football has just brought a lot more fans and people to the game and, watching multiple games, right? You're not just watching the team that's in the city you live and all of that. But I appreciate you never sending me messages that, hey, I only threw for 296 or 297 and couldn't get like a couple more yards. I got plenty of those from friends back home, saying, hey, you couldn't have got one more completion or whatever. I'm like, hey, we won. All right. Like, let's let it go.
Before I jump to Crenshaw, speaking of the AFC South, we got a Jaguars commentary. Josh Allen wants to know: were you the quarterback for the Texans when the Hail Mary game they lost to the Jags in 2010?
I was. That was, yeah, it was very frustrating. We always had some really good battles against the Jags, whether at home or on the road. And that one went the other way because, everything happened the way it was meant to in a Hail Mary. I think it was Glover Quinn at safety, did everything he was supposed to do. Jump up, don't try to catch it, just bat it down. And he was like a volleyball player blocking a spike, and he just knocked it down, and I think it was Mike Thomas was their receiver who was right there just to like fair catch it and walk it 2 steps in the end zone. I mean, it was
David Garrard was a quarterback, correct? Yes.
David Garrard was a quarterback, great guy, and that was a stunner for sure.
All right, Crenshaw, what about you?
I got a couple questions here. If you do keep up with the Texans, do you still root for them? And when you was the quarterback here, how was the ownership?
Yeah, first part, I keep up with all the teams. I like to, one thing since I retired 2 years ago, this is my second season out. NFL Red Zone is such a great concept to be able to watch and get all the games and be able to see the important plays and see all that. So I see more. And, but I pay attention to the league as a whole. Obviously, there's one guy still on the Texans from when I left there, John Weeks, the long snapper. So, but there's a lot of people within the organization that I still keep in touch with that are still there. And so I still pay attention, but I'm a fan of the game, and I would like to keep up with the entire league. But I still look back and see what's going on with Houston and what they're doing. And, as far as the ownership, I mean, I had a great relationship with the late Bob McNair, who's the owner in Cal. So he was always around, came to practices, was engaged and involved with the team. So it was a priority of mine and important to have conversations and be visible to them and engage them and what was going on. So it was important to, as one of the leaders on the team, to have a good relationship and have open lines of communication.
All right. Speaking of ownership and lines of communication, here's a question. Of course, you already answered a contact with the Texans, but he said, have you ever consideration to signing a one-day contract to retire with the team? In my opinion, you deserve the Texans Ring of Honor. Has that ever been thrown out to you?
It has. They haven't approached me with that, and to be honest with you, since I haven't even really officially. I guess I don't know if there's paperwork you got to send in, but I haven't engaged them on that topic at all. And I understand why guys do it when they retire. If they played somewhere for majority of their career, 10 years, 11 years, and they have a year somewhere else, but then they want to sign that. It's not something I've really thought about, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And I appreciate the sentiments on the Ring of Honor. Again, that's out of my control, but obviously the one guy that's up there right now is well deserving in Andre, and hopefully there's I think there's a handful of guys that from that era that we're talking 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13. Probably eventually JJ will be in there, but there's a handful of guys that I believe should have an opportunity to have their names up there.
All right. Well, we also got another comment. Can you please be on the coaching roster next year? We got people who already want you to be a coach there, Mr. Schaub.
Hey, I'm a phone call away. You never know.
Right. Well, here's another question before I finish with mine. What was the toughest year of your career, mentally or physically?
Yeah, I think we touched on it earlier. Obviously, 2013,
right.
That year, with how far we had come as an organization, and the 2011, 2020 season, 2012 season, excuse me, and both of those, getting defeated in the divisional round of the playoffs, and all the expectations, the types of players, the team that we had built, and we were all intact, and just all the expectations, and falling short of those, and how it happened. Obviously, that was, not easy to deal with, physically, emotionally, all the above. That was difficult. And then, after that, getting traded over to Oakland and, there was a lot going on, and that was a trying time of my life and my professional career. But though that's what comes with the territory. It's not always going to be easy. It's just something you gotta persevere through and lean on those that support you, family, friends, and having those structures in place to be able to keep you balanced and keep you the motivation, keep that fire burning. And so it's something that you deal with those things year to year, play to play, game to game. But that was tough.
Yeah, it was. We'll ask one more question and kind of sign off. My last question. I was going through the NFL Watch Facebook, whatever, how they have the NFL stuff, and it said every 32 teams bloopers throughout the history of the franchise. And on the Texans, it was Sage Rosenfeld's Sage the Copter. You were there. What did it look like on the field? Was it crazy like it looked on TV or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember the actual down and distance and the situation that happened, but it was kind of I don't want to say shock and awe moment, but it was like, what's going on? Like, what's happening right now? Like, obviously it was against Indianapolis, and against a team like that and the offense that they have, you don't want to give them extra turns or extra chances with the football. And, that just so happened gave them some points. And, it was just one of those crazy plays and something that you don't see, but maybe once a year, if that.
Yeah, it was crazy to see it on the TV. BT, what about you?
So this is a non-football question, but I watched this show about your house because it was like a house sitting show. I forget who was house sitting on it, but I did see that you have a humidor.
Lee Taylor. It was Lee Taylor.
Lee Taylor. That's exactly who it was. And I'm a big cigar smoker myself, and I saw you have a humidor. So my favorite cigar is a 64 Exclusiva, Padron 64 Exclusiva. I gotta ask, what's your favorite cigar?
Yeah, I usually lean towards the Monte Cristo. To be honest with you, Monte Cristo number 2 would probably be my go-to. I'm not necessarily. Yeah, I have one. I'm not necessarily a connoisseur, so that's about the limit to my knowledge of it. Usually it's with the usually it's with the fellas out. We go golfing, or a golf trip or something like that.
Well, I highly recommend that you try and ask for next time. 64 Padron Exclusiva. Change your life.
Awesome. All right. Will do. Noted.
All right, Mr. Crenshaw.
All right. These are my last two right here. I want to know what was going on with the disagreement you had with Andre on the sideline that one game?
Yep.
And how is your CRA foundation going?
Yeah, so the thing on the sideline, that was just a frustrating point. We touched on that 2013 season, and there was a lot of emotions, within the team, within me, and that was just a misunderstanding. It was, hey, I got an opportunity to get back in the game, try to go no huddle. Let's try to, I think it was against the Raiders, and try to give us a spark and get us back in the game. And it didn't work out. We had a miscommunication on a play down in the red zone. And, I kind of lost my cool, and it just, and vice versa. And so it was just a misunderstanding. We're cool to this day. So it was just the heat of the moment and the emotions of the game and the situation and what we were going through as a football team. And then what was the second part? I forget.
Oh, I was asking about your foundation. How is that going right now?
Yeah, the Great Hope Foundation, something that we had going, that we had going in Houston for about 5 years. And we worked with Texas Children's Hospital, and we did, some amazing things with the help of the people in the community. I mean, we built a playroom for the kids. We expanded the emergency room from 12 to 24 beds, and just anything we could do to help the kids that were, embarking on the medical center and at Texas Children's. But then when we started moving around, things just kind of, it was hard to get things up and running in other cities when we started going from Oakland to Baltimore and then to Atlanta here. But we're still heavily involved down here with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and what they do at the hospital and system here.
Oh, what a great cause. Before we wrap everything up, Mr. Schaub, one more question from the group. What do you think about the current state of the Texans?
Yeah.
Heavy question there.
Obviously I'm not there. I'm not heavily involved. So I got to say first, not being so disconnected, it's hard to speak specifically on what is going on and where the disconnect is, what's the path forward to get the thing back on the right path. I think there's multiple levels of that, multiple layers to that. And it comes down to personnel, probably. If you want to win football games, it comes down to the people that you have, suiting up on Sunday and addressing the needs and how to build it out. But to speak specifically on that, it's tough to say, but you got to have leadership. You got to have, someone manning the ship and having the right person, the right team, the right group of people that are all on the same page and moving in the same direction and see things the same way. But it's got to filter on down through to the locker room and permeate the entire building.
Oh yeah. So basically, what you're saying is we need a Matt Schaub 2.0 to to take over, right? That's what you're saying?
I appreciate you saying it. I'm not going to say it, but I appreciate you saying it.
We got you, Matt. We got you.
Watching it, I think that there's some pieces that you need to find that can steer the ship in the right direction.
All right.
Well, I got a quick one. Right quick. Okay, so Matt, I think you was you 6'6", 245. I think you played. Do you think Bryce Young's size and height will be a factor in the NFL? Because you took plenty of hits during your day. So you think he can last, or it's not a big deal?
There's been plenty of guys that have played the game that have been smaller stature. I think it's understanding how to play the game. When you're maybe a little slighter, a little smaller, finding the passing lanes, knowing when to get out, knowing when to protect yourself. When the fight's over, like things are collapsing on you. Hey, sometimes you got to eat the football and take a sack. That's not the end of the world, because the greatest ability is availability, and especially at the quarterback position. So I don't find it to be concerning. I think it's just, there's some physical play in the SEC. So if you're talking Bryce Young, he has had to play in the SEC and against some of those defenses. Obviously, the NFL is a different animal, but I don't see it as much of a concern. But I think he's got to understand, how to protect himself, take care of himself, and how to play. There's been plenty of guys that have shown they can do it. So I don't think that that's going to be a big deal.
Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Schaub, we greatly appreciate you coming on. You're one of our goals of people to have on. So thank you for coming on. It means a lot. Why don't you tell everybody where we can find you and what amazing things you have going on?
Well, to be honest with you, I wish I could sit here and tell you my social media handles. I couldn't even tell you. Just find me,
Just search your name, huh?
You'll find it. Whatever, just find me. But no, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I see you already started a campaign, or you have it going to get JJ on. Hopefully, he'll get off the golf course and riding off into the sunset, and he'll respond to you guys.
Hey, if you have his number, you can send it to, hey, I know some great guys.
I will. You can count on it.
So tell us what you got going on, Matt. We mentioned the Great Hope Foundation. Anything else you have going on that we look out for?
Yeah, just keep your eyes and ears peeled, and there might be some things coming to fruition and down the pipeline. But right now, not too much to report out on. Just enjoying playoff football.
Yes, sir. All right, and Crenshaw, tell everybody where we can find you at.
You can find me at 5th Ward Crenshaw, and me and Mr. Matt Schaub has 5 kids, so I know it's tough.
Fortunately, they're all in bed right now, so that's why we're good to go.
BT, what about you?
You can find me at Brown Chubby Bear on Twitter. You can find me at Chubby Brown Bear on Reddit. And guys, if you're not subscribed, subscribe to this YouTube channel. We have OG Jonathan Wells coming on next week. So it's going to be a good show next week.
And guys, you can find me at A1 Day 1 Texans, and you can find the podcast at Texans Fan Battle everywhere. Like Mr. Schaub said, we are campaigning. I think we're on day 16 to get JJ Watt on. So make sure you like and retweet. Maybe he'll answer us. Until then, guys, enjoy. Like Matt said, enjoy playoff football, and hopefully we can see some upsets. Until then, we'll see you later.
Go Texans.